Hello, everyone. I'm not sure if I'm actually live or not, but I am LaShonda Smith, CEO and founder of Crescendo Strategies Group. I initially planned on going live on LinkedIn, but unfortunately, there were some technical difficulties. And I know that a lot of people who are on LinkedIn are my professional network, and those who are my friends on Facebook are just friends and family. So hopefully you all will find this information useful or important. And if you know someone in your network, please feel free to share this information with them. So I'm going to bring somebody else to the stage, someone who is my intern. I often call him my summer intern. Hi, Ian. Can't hear you. Hello.
Yes, I'm here. Trying to.
You can hear me?
Oh, thank you.
Would you like to introduce
Hi, my
yourself?
name is Ian, and am a, uh, I'm gonna be monitoring the chat. So let's see if everything goes well. Back to
Well,
you.
thank you, baby. Thanks for
Oh, you're
monitoring.
muted.
No, I'm not muted. Thanks for
Well, I can't hear
monitoring
you.
the chat. You can't hear me? That's okay. Thank you so much. So today, I want to talk to you all about my work and what I do. I do help nonprofits. I help businesses for good with their strategic development and their planning. So what that can also include like fundraising or board development or partnerships. Often I work with one organization that's a part of one sector who wants to get some crossover into another. So let's say they are a EV company and they want to get in with partnerships with government, or they want to get in partnerships with houses of worship. I can help them strategize and get those partnerships. Additionally, I help nonprofits with grant writing if necessary, fundraising campaigns, strategic plans for multiple years. And that is something that we're going to be talking about today is your strategic plan. Many organizations have a strategic plan that spans for multiple years. So anywhere between 3 to 5 years is what is standard in the industry. However, there's a lot of issues when it comes to strategic plans because many people don't know how to utilize them very well. So they may write it and never use it again, or they write it with lofty goals but aren't able to implement. So, what I want to talk about today is strategy development and how it isn't a luxury and it is a lifestyle, especially for your organization. So, I want to also reimagine growth for your organization because that's what's most important is to amplify growth and amplify impact. So, and I want to do that with an impact framework that I have designed and I have tested. So, would love for you all to learn more about that. So, here's some hard truths about the nonprofit strategy. There's unfortunately only 23% of organizations get their boards involved in creating their strategic plan, which is really, really horrible to think about because so many organizations rely heavily on their nonprofit boards. Um, their nonprofit boards should be those who are serving on your board should be your spokespeople. They should be your advocate within the community. And if you aren't involving your board in the development of your strategic plan, you are doing yourself a disservice. Um, I think often some people feel that having a strategic plan being created internally, because those are the folks who have their boots on the ground and understand what's going on with the day to day operations, is sufficient. but it isn't. You need to incorporate your board in your efforts. Also, 70% of have failed implementation. So 70% of strategic plans never actually get implemented. And that could be segments of your strategic plan or the whole thing altogether. So, and that's really sad because so many times people and organizations spend a lot of time creating their strategic plan. For it not to actually be implemented is doing yourself a disservice. So that's why I want to also reframe this and letting you all know that strategy isn't a document, it's a living, breathing process. And you need to create it in a way that is beneficial for your organization to launch successfully and to grow. And also, you don't have to do this alone. So that's why I'm here and I want to share these great tips with you all. Okay, so let's talk about what strategic development is and why it's broken. Often, strategic development is, or strategic planning is based on some lofty goals that folks may have. Let's see here. So, strategy development is a dynamic planning that aligns mission, money, and momentum. It's not a static document. It's ongoing process that adapts to changing conditions while staying true to core purpose. And I think that's extremely important. Sometimes when developing a strategic plan, you can see some organizations implement or make plans to implement something that aren't really true to who they are. And they end up losing their donor base. They end up losing their volunteers or support system because they feel that the organization is going in a direction that they no longer recognize. So when it comes to strategy development, it's important to keep your mission, your vision in mind while creating it. Also keeping in mind who you have as in terms of your staff, who you have in terms of partnerships currently and in the future, and also financials. Where are you guys currently financially, and what are your goals in order to meet the future needs of your organization? So here are some problems that we see that I kind of mentioned. Shelf plans. These things are beautiful documents that you create. You spend months and months and months creating them. Some people do stakeholder interviews and do some sort of analysis and things of that nature. But ultimately, no one is using it after they create it. They just leave it on the shelf after they create it. Static roadmaps. So it's very rigid planning that doesn't adapt to the needs of the organization. And I'm sure you're probably thinking, well, I have to make it as detailed as possible in order for it to be a useful document, right? So how can I make it a solid document while also making it flexible? And I'll talk to you about that in the future. So vision misalignment, and that's so important. So sometimes the board and staff don't have alignment in terms of the mission of the organization, and because they have different directions of the organization, again, maybe you didn't consult the board, maybe you all didn't sit down and talk about priorities together, there becomes this mission vision and mission misalignment that can occur that makes the strategic plan outdated and not useful. So the numbers don't lie. Strategic plan abandonment. Over 60% of nonprofits fail to revisit their strategic plan after 1 year, and this is according to the Stanford Social Innovation Research Review research. And we know that's a great publication. Lots of great information. If you are a new nonprofit or new to the public sector, I would say to please subscribe to that publication. There's so much great information there. Also, 86% of nonprofit leaders believe that their strategic plan has positively impacted revenue. I know we just kind of talked about some of the pitfalls of making a strategic plan, but those who do it well attribute a lot of their growth and their impact to having such a document. So they're able to analyze their grants and their donors and events and other sources to inform them on how they will be walking out the future years of their organization. So here's some things that I love. My background includes public sector, private sector, and nonprofit sector. So some things that I have learned is that the nonprofit sector and the government sector often creates strategic plans differently. And with the government sector, they spent a lot of detail on implementation, and they do it on a very segmented basis. So by department, actually. So if you were to open up a strategic plan for any government or your city, actually, if you live in a city, an incorporated space, I would encourage you to go on your city's website, look up their strategic plan. It's going to be over multiple years, sometimes 5, 10 plus. Some of them have even longer strategic plans, which is really cool to see how they have outlook for the next 30 years sometimes. And what they do is they segment it by departments. So you could see what they have in store for, or what they have for planning in different departments of their organization. Also, Ian, I'm going to bring you to the stage for one moment. Can you do that for me? I'm bringing you to the stage for one moment. Can you hold down the stage for me for 1 second, okay? Thank you, Ian. Great job. So, like I mentioned, they segment their strategic plans by department. So you know by each individual department what is going to be happening over multiple years for them. And unlike that with the nonprofit sector, often it's very high level, and they don't necessarily delve deep into each program per se that their maybe their nonprofit offers, or different segments that they may have within their nonprofit. And I think that's something that the nonprofit sector can definitely learn from government sector. Another thing that I think that the government sector can learn from nonprofit sector is that I'm seeing a big trend with nonprofits and their strategic plans, and it not being a static document, but being something that's kind of um, that they kind of post to their websites that don't necessarily look like this static document. It's something that's interactive and something that is really cool. So I think that's something that each sector could possibly take from one another. Also, the strengths of a nonprofit is mission focused, which is great. Community ties, of course, so those deep stakeholder relationships are so important and should be incorporated in your strategic plan as a nonprofit. And agile innovation, ability to pivot quickly. Often this is caused by funding trends within the nonprofit sector that move a little quicker than in the government sector. Now, not to say the government sector doesn't deal with fluctuation in income, because they do, because they're based on taxes, but for the most part, their fluctuation isn't as wide as it can be for some nonprofits in some sectors. So my approach, because I have experience in both, is to blend both approaches for implementation and stakeholder alignment strategic plans to combine the nonprofit agility and the government level systematic thinking to your strategic plan so that it is a stronger document. And I see there are people who have joined the live. Thank you so much. I can't see who exactly it is, but thank you so much for joining. So, common pitfalls, why strategic plans fail. So here we go. Static, outdated plans. They are created once and they're never updated, or they become quickly irrelevant because people aren't looking at them. And it should be a living, breathing document. It should be written in a way that you all should be able to jump in and jump out of if necessary, to revisit, so that everyone is in alignment. Everyone who's on your team is in alignment and understands what's going on. Over complicity. So here we go. Complexity, sorry, over complexity. I have an example of over complexity. Back in my local government consulting days, I was assisting a city who had a tax sharing agreement with their county. They were a newly incorporated city, so they had this tax sharing agreement with the county. And because of it, it was supposed to happen gradually over time where they acquired more and more land from the county to become this city. However, the tax sharing agreement that they had, they were saying, well, the taxes that are generated from these shopping centers in this area will be split between us, the city, and the county over multiple years until one day we're no longer sharing tax revenue. Just this is often done so that it's not a big shock to the budget of each of those government agencies, right? So they had this thing in place and they had it in place for multiple years. However, it was so complicated, they had to hire us, the consulting firm, to help them unravel it. And at the time when it was implemented, I think maybe 15, 20 years prior to me even being a part of the company, everyone who was involved in creating that tax sharing agreement worked for the agency. But over time, as you know, people leave jobs, people leave positions, people retire, things happen. So if you have this complicated document or complicated agreement, and the people who weren't a part of the original design of it leave and go somewhere else, it can become extremely hard to implement for the future folks. So I said all this to say, I know that you're probably thinking, why are you talking about tax sharing agreements and things? We're talking about strategic plans. Here is the principle. You cannot create something based on your current team. You cannot create a strategic plan with outgoing years based on your current team alone. You have to consider that someone else may be joining your team, may be leaving your team, and you want them to be able to pick up that document and be able to keep going so that the organization can keep going. It should be clear so that everybody understands what they're doing. If you create it only for those who have insider knowledge, institutional knowledge, having that history with that organization, well, of course, for those folks who've been there forever, they can pick it up. They know exactly what's going on. But I want you to start thinking about other folks who are not a part of your organization yet. How will they know what to do? And how will they know that they're doing it in an accurate way? So that's a principle that I take with me. So when it comes to creating your strategic plan, even if it is extremely detailed and it has to be, let's just say it has to be complicated, that's fine. But you need to be able to have clear direction so that anyone can pick it up and run with it, not just the people that are currently on your team. Again, thank you for the one person who is viewing this. I don't know who it is. I can't tell who it is, but thank you so much for viewing this. And please feel free to share this with someone else if they find it beneficial. Disconnect from operations. So strategies exist separately from the daily work and fundraising. This is so important. A lot of times organizations, staff feel that plans are created without them in mind. And if you know how organizations are run, your staff are the ones who are actually carrying things out. So if you don't have a good handle on what your team can actually do in terms of capacity, in terms of skill set, and you're creating these lofty goals and these big goals in your strategic plan, there's going to be a disconnect. So you need to be able to create your strategic plan based on the team that you have. And if you have plans on expanding your team, growing out your team, or diversifying talent in some way, you can build that into your strategic plan, but be sure that you are building it based off of who is a part of your current team and their knowledge, skills, ability, capacity. All of those things are considered so that it's easier to get buy-in from your staff so that they can implement what is necessary. Number 4, this is a big one. This is why strategic plan fail. These are some of the traps, 5 traps. So this is number 4, very, very big. No accountability. We create these beautiful things. We say this is what we're going to do. However, there's no accountability. No one is checking in. No one is saying, did you do this? And an easy way to think, I know sometimes people hear accountability and they automatically get turned off by it because they think, oh, someone is going to get in trouble if they don't do it, or, it's another sort of thing that they have to do, especially as a manager, that you have to kind of enforce, another thing to enforce. And I want you to think about it in a different way. Instead of thinking about accountability in terms of punishment or coming down hard on your team, think about accountability in a way of building it into your systems, building it into your monthly meetings, your biweekly meetings. That's how you can build accountability. So incorporate whatever your plans are, whatever you have built out in your strategic plan, into your regular meetings. So if you are meeting one-on-one with some of your staff, talk to them and say, hey, this is the priority for this quarter, is to get ABC, XYZ done. By this week, we think we should be here. How are you doing with this? What are some of the issues you're coming across? What are some of the wins you have? This is how you build in accountability, knowing that people know that your leadership team is going to be asking their staff, their team as well, what they are doing to accomplish said goals. That's how you build an accountability. If they know that it's going to be a part of their check-ins, the team meetings, team calls, whatever it is, they know that you're going to call them on the carpet and know what exactly is going on, ask them what exactly is going on. That's how you build in accountability. You make it a part of your regular operations, right? Number 5, oh my goodness, grant chasing without strategy. My goodness. I've seen so much with that. There's so many things that go into grant writing that people don't consider. And that's one thing about my industry that I don't necessarily care for. Sometimes there are grant writers who are willing to write grants for folks and aren't necessarily concerned about the success rate of that organization, or aren't honest about what the success rates look like for organizations, especially newly established organizations or those who are new to grants or securing grants. On average, you're going to get, maybe for a new org, you're going to get around 10% of every grant that you apply for. So maybe 10% of all grants you apply for, you may be awarded 10% of those. And that's something that's important. So grant writing and grants are important in your revenue diversification, absolutely. However, you have to be strategic about it, and you have to be okay with the process of applying to multiple grants and not being awarded, because that's a part of it. There are ways to make sure that you are more, there's the likelihood of you getting awarded a grant. And there's ways to do that. Is also creating relationships with these foundations or organizations that you are applying to, talking within your local network of other nonprofit leaders and community resources to see what grants are out there right now and where they, especially if they're locally based, those are always a great way to get started. So when you need a strategy in place. Where am I going to be applying to these grants? How many grants am I going to apply to each year? What can we afford to apply? And also, what can we do in-house versus what we need to get assistance on? And it's okay. Some things maybe you guys can handle yourself. Maybe you want to get a consultant like myself to help you with writing a grant. Also, there's other strategies as well in getting community backing and support from your local representatives. Hello, I see another person has joined the live. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you find this information useful. So as it relates to grants, there's people that you can get to back you and write letters of support. So if it's a community partner, if it's your mayor, if it's a state representative official or someone of that sort who can speak to your work. Now, again, as like I said, you want to make sure that you're getting people who are writing letters of support as you're chasing after grants, who can actually speak to the work that you've done in the community. If they don't know you, or if there's no way for them to verify that you've done any of this work in the community, I would advise that you not do that. So again, that goes along with strategy when it comes to applying for grants. Also, there's a trend within nonprofit sector with receiving funding that isn't necessarily aligned with your mission is your vision of the organization. It kind of covers what you do, but by doing that, you end up subscribing to mission drift. And we see that happening with organizations. You start, you may be supporting as a volunteer or as a donor, and all of a sudden, and they were doing one thing, and over the years, you see now they've abandoned that and started doing something else. That goes along with grant chasing without strategy. They're just looking for money to stay afloat. And you can't do that. People are savvy, donors are savvy, they know what's going on. So you can't do that. It's really important as it relates to your strategy to make sure you know what grants you're going for, if those organizations are aligned with your organization, and the funding is aligned with the work that you want to do. Yes, so another stat I just wanted to bring to light here, Bridgeband findings that only 35% of nonprofits link strategies to operations. That is not good. Strategy and operations have to go hand in hand. So we talked about the disconnect from operations right there when you have these lofty goals, but your team doesn't have a clue what's going on or how to implement this strategy. So based on my work and years in nonprofit, local government, fundraising, and consulting, I've been able to develop my own framework. And this is my new approach to strategic development. And not just creating plans, but actually delving in, seeing what's going on with the organization, identifying those areas of improvement that would yield the highest return on investment so that you can see immediate ROI. And so based on that, I have created the impact framework, which is also steeped in social impact, so that those mission-driven organizations, whether you be a nonprofit or for-profit, you are able to see your strategic plan in a particular light that helps you stay mission vision focused with amazing return on investment and amplified growth and impact. So impact is an acronym, and I stands for inclusive partnerships, M is for measurable outcomes, P is for purpose-driven innovation, A is for adaptive strategies, C is for community empowerment, and T is for transparency and accountability. So in inclusive partnerships, the goal is to cultivate partnerships that align with the mission, vision, and goals. Often in my work as a strategic intermediary, especially for public-private partnerships, or for those who are just looking for a partnership development coordinator, I've served in that role as well. They want to ensure that they have the correct partnerships, inclusive partnerships. So what does that look like? Okay, let's say you are a nonprofit organization and you're new to the scene, you don't really know many folks, you want to help and bring a particular service to the community. In inclusive partnerships, you need to map out who is already the key players in your community that are doing similar work and where you fit into this landscape. Once you've able to identify that, and I can help you do that, once we've identified that, we then go into saying, who are these key players and how can I partner with these folks? And how can I reach out to them? So then it's just a matter of finding our connections, mutual connections, connecting with these people and devising a partnership that is mutually beneficial with high impact. So this is really important in terms of your strategic plan. So if you're looking at certain aspects of your future of the organization, one of the big key things is you want to see who are these inclusive partnerships. So that includes engaging in multi-sector communities and amplifying diverse voices. That is so, so, so important. I am a huge fan, and I'm sure you can hear it, a huge fan of the tri-sector business model. And that is when for-profit, nonprofit, and government, for-profit, nonprofit, yes, and government come together to solve a societal problem. And we can do that when everyone is able to contribute, and then everyone can benefit. So finding those inclusive partnerships, they can be in your same sector. If you're a nonprofit, you can find other nonprofits that can help you. You can find businesses that want to support what you do. Maybe they have alignment in terms of the subject matter expertise, but they're in a different sector, but they may have a line item set aside to help community programs, and you can get a grant from a business perhaps, and that can become a partnership. Finding another nonprofit that does similar work or things that are kind of alignment, you guys can create events together so that you can draw in more people, and both organizations can benefit and have higher impact as well. Government, talking to your local elected and administrative professionals. I am big on city admin. City admin are amazing. They are the brains of the city. If you don't know who your city manager is, you don't know who your economic development manager is, you don't know who, depending on the type of work you do, maybe you need to know who the public service director is. Those are key folks who are very well versed of community development as well, a community services director. Those are key folks who know what's going on in the city on an administrative level, because they're the ones who are utilizing the tax fund to distribute to different programs for the city and services. Yes, is it important to know who your mayor is? Absolutely. Is it important to have a connection with them? Absolutely. Your mayor and council also increasingly important. However, please do not leave out city administration. I'm always going to be a proponent of city admin because, like I said, they are the brains of the city. Measurable outcomes. So this is where you establish and track metrics to elevate success and maximize impact. So we talked about that, and measurable outcomes are established when you're able to map out what exactly you want to see accomplished in your organization, and from there, tracking it. So we want to be able to track that, and also tracking impact. So if you are a volunteer-based organization, you can track please track how many volunteers are coming in, how many people are receiving our services. Also, think of different ways to track those metrics. So let's say, for example, you're a child care center. I help a child care center. So when I think about measuring impact, I'm not just thinking about the kids that attend on a daily basis. I'm thinking about the families that are also impacted by our services. So that's a bigger measure. So if I'm saying, oh, we help about 100 kids a year, but if we're looking at 100 kids and families, that could be another 200 people. If we're thinking about a mom and dad, or a mom and a big brother or sister, or a grandparent or a couple of grandparents, that shows impact on an exponential way. That's extremely important to see and measure it differently, and be able to measure them in different ways. So if your impact is more than just the person that you're touching, and actually those who are within their household, that's another way to measure outcomes as well. So think of creative ways to measure that, because this is where it becomes important. This is why it is important, not only to develop your strategic plan, but when you're going back and you're seeking out government assistance, or you're seeking out those partnerships with companies, you can say what your impact is, and they want to see those numbers. And the bigger the numbers, often, the more impressed they are. See, another person has joined the live. Thank you so much. I'm just going over what strategy development you should utilize in creating your strategic plan for your organization, whether you're a nonprofit or for-profit for good. These are important tips and useful tips. And I'm going over my framework right now, the impact framework. So now we're on letter P, purpose-driven innovation. Oh my goodness, I am an innovator. I love to ideate and create and think of different things to solve problems. And when it's purpose driven innovation, it's even better for me. So I want to give you all permission in your strategic plan to push innovation, push something cool, push something different, push something that you haven't really seen before, but you've been kind of thinking about, and think of ways that you can implement it in your strategic plan so that it can set your organization apart. Those who are innovative are always going to be set apart from other organizations. So championing innovation alignment with social and environmental goals, such as your SDGs or your ESGs. So making sure that's incorporated in who you are as an organization. With that said, make sure it's actually in alignment with what your organization does. We talked about mission drift. We don't want innovation to the point of mission drift, but we want innovation that makes sense to your organization. So when you're leveraging this creativity, you have sustainable solutions that are rooted in your mission. Sustainable solutions are a great way to build out your organization and see for innovations. Or you may think like, I'm not a very innovative person. No, think about solutions. What are some of the issues that your organization is facing? What are some of the issues that your sector is facing overall, or the just the people within your community that you're serving? What are some of those issues? Sit back and think about that. If I could do anything to solve said problem, what would I do? Think big. Take the rails off. I love this, and I can help you with ideation sessions as well. This is something I do often myself. If there's anything I could do, no, money wasn't an object, resources weren't an object, what would I do? And then from there, we can scale down and see really what it is that you're trying to accomplish and what you could actually accomplish yourself. And you can incorporate that in your strategic plan. Adaptive strategies. This is important. So building flexible frameworks that evolve with changing conditions. So often, especially when it comes to nonprofit and for government and even for-profit as well, we're living in very different times where things change day to day. And because of that, we must be flexible. And a way to build in flexibility may not make initial sense, but just go there with me, okay? So building flexibility within your strategic plan may include in your project management, creating calendars and Gantt charts. So a Gantt chart, if those of you are not familiar with them, they're just a more detailed action item list with deadlines. That's the best way I can describe it. But the cool thing about a Gantt chart is that you may have a high level goal, and then under that you have multiple tasks that have to be completed in order to reach that goal. From there, you can look on a calendar going out and saying, how long is it going to take me to get each task done? And when should I assign this task to be done? So that you can have an outlook on what it is you need to do. So if this overall arching goal takes about 3 months, these subtasks underneath, I can divide them into weekly segments, or 2 weeks for this, 3 days for that, 2 days for this, 5 days for that. So when you have it all built out, you're able to then be more flexible because you can see ahead with what needs to get done. So the more detailed you are, the easier it is to be flexible, because you can go into that individual line item and say, oh, okay, we're going to have to pause here because of something, a competing interest, but we'll come back to this in a couple of months, or we're going to come back to this in 3 weeks once some other competing interest is resolved. But you can actually see it. You can see what's going on. You can see what's happening, and there you can make adjustments, and you are able to set those priorities so that everyone on your team is able to follow along. So using agile planning to respond to emerging needs. So it's important to marry the mission and date the model. And you still have your mission in mind, but the model by which you get there may change, and that's okay. So, and you have to be able to be flexible with it. And being adaptive or flexible doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It could be something even better. You could have set out multiple weeks to get something accomplished, but then at the end, you determined, oh my gosh, it's not going to take us this long because we got additional funding. So you're able to wrap things up quicker. So that's being agile as well. It's not necessarily only for putting out fires, but it's definitely also for helping when great things happen that you weren't expecting. So expect some great things. Expect a miracle from ORU. C, community empowerment. Build local capacity and leadership for sustainable impact. So it's important when you're building out your strategic plan to think about community empowerment. What can I do to empower my community that would be beneficial in this particular segment of my strategic plan? Also, always keep community in mind. Always keep not only community, but empowerment. I think that's a key word here. Oftentimes, people who are being served by certain organizations can feel as if they're being told what they need, opposed to empowering the community to tell the organizations what they need and then working together to solve the problem. So in community empowerment is always important, making sure that you're providing voice to or a space for these organizations so that they, or not for your community members, so that they can inform how you all are going to be implementing your programs, your products, whatever it may be. This is not just for nonprofit. Remember, this is also businesses for good. Your community could be those who are purchasing your product or your service. So ensuring that your community is always being considered, because if you are a mission-driven organization, if you are part of the social impact landscape, you're doing this not just for self. You're doing this for community, right? So support those grassroots leaderships with tools and provide them resources and shared power. And shared power is often great, especially let's say you have a community forum, making sure that everyone's voice is not only heard, but also valued. It's important to make sure that people feel valued and that their voice is going to be heard just as much as the millionaires who walk into your room or those big donors that are in the room as well. So when you create an environment like that, you're going to have so much community buy-in, and it's only going to make you stronger as an organization. T, last one of impact. Thank you so much for those who have been on. I don't know who this one person is. I don't know if it's the same one person, whoever you are. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate you so much. T, transparency and accountability. Build in trust and credibility. So it maintains ethical practices and open and honest communication with stakeholders. This is important, especially for nonprofits who are trying to build up their donor base. You have to be transparent and accountable. They don't want to give to organizations where they don't know where the money's going. They can't see the impact. They don't understand. So that can also be building in outside accounting practices as well to audit your organization, to say like, hey, this is an outside audit. Also, some grants require that. They want to know when was the last time you were audited by a third party. So things like that are important, not just nice to haves, but if you're out here looking for grant funding, you'd be surprised that a lot of them want to see your strategic plan. A lot of them want to see if you've had outside accounting audits, things of that nature. So this is extremely important, not only for your donor base, not only for community stakeholders, but also for your overall strategy. So your strategic planning must include transparency and accountability. So here's my impact action to you. Impact in action, actually. I'm so sorry. So one of my case studies right now, I'm working with an organization. We're using a 12-month strategy to launch their first capital campaign. So excited for them. And based on the grants that we are seeking out and potential donors, they're on track to raise $2 million within 2 years. So that is my goal with them, and using this impact framework, building out a strategic plan for them. I'm so excited about what they want to do, and I'm really excited about the impact that it's going to make. So So let's reimagine your organization's future of what could be possible. And with a strategic development transformation, you're going to have clarity from your board and from your board to your front line. Remember, there's no disconnect. So once we have transformed your strategic development, board and all the way to front line are all going to be on the same page, which is amazing. Donor, trust, and invest in the long term. So you want long-term investments. It's great to get those one-off donations and everything, but you want donors who believe in you and your organization to be to sustain over the long haul. So we want that. We love that. We love those partnerships, long-term partnerships. Strategy becomes a compass and not a burden. It should never be a burden, but always a compass. So once you've built out your strategic plan and you've done it in such great detail, you know exactly what's next and what's way ahead. And because of that, that is your guiding light and your compass in your direction. Again, things may change. You may have some shakeup, but because you've built something out that's so detailed, it will be easier to become agile. Smart, which brings us to the next thing, smarter pivots from real-time data. So you can course correct at any time when you have a great strategic plan based on what's happening in real time. So you're able to visualize, imagine sustaining ineffective programs. So sunsetting ineffective programs. So if you have real-time data and you're seeing this program that we have isn't sustainable, but this other one seems more viable or there's more potential here, you can transition and sunset and emerge something new in a way that isn't as jarring to those that you serve, but something that you can do in real time based on real data. So next steps for anyone who is still here. I know we're at the 46-minute mark. So what I am offering is a free impact strategy session, one-on-one with any organization. We can talk about what you are currently doing, what you have done, and what's not working. And in that strategy session, we can just discuss overall just what's going on with your vision, your mission, and where you would love your strategic plan to take you. And from there, we can determine if it would be a good fit to work together. And I would be happy to work with you. I now have time for Q&A. I don't know if there are any questions. I don't see anything has come in. Not quite sure. But I'll stay on if anyone, I don't think anyone is on any longer. But for those of you who were, thank you so much. I know this was a lot of information, and because it was a live, I think it should be available and it's going to stay available for some time. So please feel free to share it with others. And I look forward to working with you. I'm going to bring my intern back to the stage. Ian, can you unmute your mic? Are you unable to unmute your mic? No, it's okay. Just give us a thumbs up. Thank you so much for being here as technical support. Can you give mommy a thumbs up? Thank you. Again, thank you all so much for your time. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. Again, please share this out with anyone who has a nonprofit organization, who works for a nonprofit or for a government agency or business for good, who is in need of a strategic plan. I am happy to assist, and I do have availability to help with that. So please reach out to me. I can be reached at my website, which is crescendostrategiesgroup.com, crescendostrategiesgroup.com. And you can also reach out to me on LinkedIn if it's easier. Just look up LaShonda Smith, and you can message me directly on LinkedIn. You can also message me directly here on Facebook Messenger. And please feel, like I said, feel free to share this out with anyone in your network. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye.